Hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Scaling Season podcast. It's been a wide minute. I am your host, Jolie Mathieu, and today I have a powerful episode lined up for you, all business owner, and we are going to talk about those moments in business when you are on the brink of throwing the towel and you feel like you just want to give up. When I started my entrepreneurial journey about 5 years ago, I used to think that those moments will stop as I mature, as I grew older in business. And I also used to think that, why the successful business owner didn't have those season where, or this moment where they felt like, oh my God, this is too much. I just don't want to shop. I want to give up. And so, as I've been in business for the past 5 years, 2 years full time, I've just started to recognize that those moments are going to be just part of the game. And there are a couple of specific things which I tell myself whenever I'm on the verge of feeling like, oh my God, this is too much. I just want to move on to something else. And I think sometimes it's really good to remind yourself that you are not alone if you go through those seasons, those periods where you feel like it feels like it's too much. Like for me, for instance, now we are pivoting in the business, and I'm also learning, going through a course, going through different trainings to upskill myself. And through that process, it's a lot, my day to day is a lot to help compared to my previous workload. And I'm also writing a book, and I've been writing the book for most of the year, and I'm just like wrapping things up. And so it's just a lot on my plate, and sometimes I feel like, oh my God, I don't have the capacity to handle all of these things, and that require my attention, my focus at some level, at some capacity. So three things I tell myself in season like this. The first thing actually that I tell myself is simply, I know it might sound cliche, is that I've done harder things. I think reminding yourself that, at least for me, reminding myself that I've done harder things, it really allowed me to stay grounded and to remember that, even though it might seem challenging now, it's what's required to get me to where I want to go. And that just because it's challenging, it doesn't mean that I have the capacity, or it doesn't mean that I don't have the skill, or that I'm not made for it, basically. Because whenever you are going through a tough season, you feel like, oh my God, this is so much. I'm not sure if I'm going to the other side of this. But reminding yourself of the season, maybe last year, or a couple of years ago, or even last month, or a couple of months ago, where you went through challenges as well, but that you were able to overcome those challenges and get better on the other side, is a really powerful thing for me to really stay grounded and to just keep going through the process. So remembering my past achievement, especially those that required tremendous amount of effort, resilience, relentlessness, can really always give me that boost, that confidence boost that I need, to overcome those current difficulty and really move forward. And again, just a reminder it's also a reminder that you have what it takes to move forward, right? And if you think of any successful entrepreneur that's like widely known out there, they face their own share of obstacle. It's like we've all go through this season where we like the valley of debt, where you feel like, oh my God, this is too much. I'm not sure to handle this, and then you pass through it. So that's the first thing that I tell myself. I've done harder things. I can do this as well. The second thing I tell myself is just to remember why I got started, because typically when we get on a venture, and when we take the time to think through the venture in terms of what we want to create, how much impact we want to have, what we want, the legacy that we want to leave behind, whenever we decide to go ahead on a project, is because we have those things figured out. We have a clear vision and a clear why behind why we started, basically. And so for me, reminding myself, okay, this is why we started this, because the future self that you're currently creating is aspiring to have this lifestyle. It's inspiring to create this much impact in other people's life, in your own life, in your family lives. Those things also help me to say, okay, you know what, my future self is going to thank me for going through the motion, for doing the hard thing now, because that's what's required to get where I want to be. We won't be able to, like, the only gap between where we are and our goal is time, and it's what we do with that time. And so, of course, if we the only way to go through that gap of time and get on the other side better, stronger, smarter, faster, wiser, is to go through hard things. It's like when you're at the gym, the only way to build muscle is to lift weight. The only way to get better, to have a stronger body, is to go through some level of pain, because that's what makes your muscle grow. And so for me, it's the same thing. I'm like, okay, I'm remember why did you get started in the first place? Was it just for fun? Were you just interested, or were you committed? Because when you're interested, whenever it gets tough, you just give up. But when you are committed, it's a non-negotiable. There's no way out. There's no, oh, if it doesn't work out, then I'm doing this other thing. No, it's like, okay, I'm doing this thing, and that's there's no plan B. There's only one plan A. So reminding yourself, okay, this was it, and getting started. I knew that it wouldn't be easy, but I chose to do it anyway. So I'm expecting it to be hard. And I'm expecting myself, I'm asking of myself to do things even when circumstances are not perfect, even when I don't feel like doing things necessarily. I just have to show up for myself and do the hard things, because that's what's gonna get me to that other side, that other version of myself. That's better, that's stronger, that's faster, and that's wiser. And so when you think about one example, which I really love, is by the founder of Airbnb, of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, when in the early 80s, when he was building Starbucks, and when it was just like a small coffee shop in Seattle, right? He had a vision of creating this amazing place, this worldwide coffee shop where people will come and gather to have a coffee and feel like they were at home, right? But when he was faced with countless rejection from potential investor and struggle to keep his business afloat, it would have been easy for him to quit and say like, okay, this dream is too big. Who am I to even have those aspirations? But he just kept pushing forward, remember what he started, and which was to build a community and around coffee, and that kept him going. And today Starbucks is, it's one of my favorite places to go and have a snack or a hot drink. And it's the case for millions of people, all over the world. And what kept him going was that vision that he had, that he held strong onto, that allowed him to build this global coffee giant that's worldwide and that thousands, millions of people actually love. So the next time you are tempted to throw in the towel, remind yourself of your initial vision and the passion that drove you in the first place to actually get started, and that can really reignite your determination and push you through those tough times. That's what I do for myself. And I just close my eyes. I'm like, okay, let me just picture Jolie in 10 years, right? What type of woman does she be like? What type of lifestyle does she want to have, and what's going to be required of her. And when I see myself, I see that badass woman that's like that CEO, like driving, running multiple businesses and having impacted thousands of businesses worldwide. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, to become that girl, to become that powerful boss, I need to go through this motion. I need to go through this challenge. I need to get better. I need to upskill myself. I need to, you know, to toughen up basically. And that's what keeps me going. And so the third thing that I do and that I tell myself whenever those feelings come up is that I just look at the data and I look at what data is telling me. Okay, how have I been using my time? Have I been prioritizing things that bring me joy? Have I been looking at where my frustration come from and where the feeling of overwhelm come from? Do I have too many things on my calendar that might not be driving growth for the business? Am I just stuck in the motion of doing the day to day without looking at the big picture? How have I been using my time? Because typically when you have the feeling of overwhelm, it can either be because you are taking on projects which are requiring you to stretch and get uncomfortable, but it might also be because you are just doing it too much. You are just stuck in the day to day. You're doing things that you don't necessarily love and that you don't have any interest for, and that are not actually even driving growth for the business. And in those cases, it's okay to ask, okay, do I need to should I keep on doing this thing? What can I remove from my calendar so that I can have more space, more clarity to focus on actually what drives the business? Because just because something has to be done doesn't mean that it has to be done by you, right? As a business owner, as the CEO, you have to protect your time, you have to protect your energy, and you have to prioritize what you spend your time doing. And so if you feel overwhelmed, look at data and look at, okay, where have my time been going? What have I been focusing on? And have those things either drove real impact for the business? What's the likelihood of them driving an impact for the business over the next couple of years? Can this be outsourced without affecting the outcome? And also, am I, is that actually something that I should be focusing on, or should I just delegate this thing, or pass it on to another team member? That's really key, because sometimes as a business owner we think, okay, I need to do everything, and no one can do it as better as I do. I'm the best at doing this thing. But the truth is that if you want to grow, there are going to come seasons where you have to remove things off of your plate so that you can actually go and invest that time. You need to buy back your time so you can actually go back and use the time to further grow the business in a more strategic way. It's not just about how many things you're able to, you know, take off your to-do list at the end of this, about how many impactful things, how many strategic things you're actually doing with your time. So being mindful of that and not looking at those elements. And so my bonus tip here also that it's okay. Remind yourself that it's okay to pivot but not to quit, right? So, and this is probably one of the most important things that you, after analyzing what you've been doing and looking at your results, sometimes you think, okay, this business is not working, I'm just going to change things and switch completely to the business. But maybe you just need to pivot your strategy. Maybe you need to pivot your target market. Maybe you need to pivot your the way in which you approach your market, and or the way in which you make decision. Because sometimes if you pivot, you are still in the same game, you're still in the same lane, but you're just doing things differently. You're doing things in a way that's more strategic, basically, right? And so when you are at crossroad, instead of quitting outright, ask yourself, is there a way to pivot my business model, adapt to changing circumstances, and find your opportunity within your industry? Because the truth is, no matter in which market you operate, whether you are selling online or offline, the market is going to become more sophisticated and more saturated. And the competition is going to be, you're going to have more competition as time goes by. So you are going to find that it's harder to get the same result that you used to get easily a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years ago. And at that point, instead of saying, oh my God, this has become too hard, I'm going to quit and just do something else and just try a different industry, ask yourself instead, okay, perfect. What is there where I can pivot my strategy so I can remain competitive, so I can tap into a bigger market share, so I can grow my revenue and I can bring more value to my client, my employee, my team member? That's really key, right? And so one remarkable example of the power of pivoting is, like, I had to pivot earlier this year when I was, for the longest time, I was working primarily at the Dragon. We were working primarily with high ticket coaches, consultants, servicing them with social media ad, helping them scale their business that way. And earlier this way, we had to pivot, where we had to expand a little bit our customer base and also tap into high ticket local businesses. We are servicing high ticket online businesses and high ticket local businesses. And that has been a strategic move because it allowed us to even own onto our skills and own onto that expertise, which is to drive high ticket clients using ads for our clients, but doing it both on the online space and on the offline space. And that has been a strategic move. And so instead of, or another example which I've read recently about was about Netflix. In the early 20, Netflix was primarily a DVD rental type of service, where they were like renting DVD by mail. And when the digital world took off, they were like, oh my God, we are faced with a lot of competition from streaming platform like Hulu, Amazon Prime. And so instead of throwing the towel and be like, okay, we're just going to do something completely different, they say, okay, you know what, let me make a bold, they made a bold pivot and shifted their focus into online streaming, right? And that allowed them to revolutionize the entertainment industry, but also their sales and their revenue, making them a global streaming giant that we know today. And so I highly invite you, whenever you are faced with a challenge and you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling, oh my God, this is too much, I'm going to quit. Ask yourself, can I pivot? And what would be my next best move? And so I highly invite you to read the book, Your Five Best Move. It's a business book. I've actually forgot the name of the author. I always forget. I remember the book title, but I have a hard time remembering the author title. But the five best move is really good. People have recommend to read, and The Making of Starbucks are really two business books that even inspired this podcast and actually what I'm going through personally and at the business level. So there you have it. Three things, or actually three and a half things, that I tell myself whenever I'm on the brink of giving up, when I feel like I'm overwhelmed and it's too much. And so I hope those will find those empowering to yourself, to tell yourself when you're about to quit. So remember, you've done other things in the past. Remember why you started, what was the vision. Look at your calendar and see where your time is going, and if you've been prioritizing things that bring you joy while helping scale the business. And finally, it's okay to pivot, not quit. So this mantra can really help you navigate the toughest time and emerge stronger on the other side, right? So remember that any successful businesses, any successful entrepreneur out there faced incredible adversity, but refused to give up. They just refused. They were relentless. They were obsessed. And that's what made them widely known uh, as we know them today, basically. So thank you for joining today's episode of the Scaling Season podcast. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe and share it with a fellow business owner that might benefit from this insight. It will mean the world to me. And as always, keep pushing forward, stay resilient, and stay relentless. I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye bye.